day your parents left the hospital with you, newspapers out there with newspapers. And wrote a big story put on the front page about triplets being born, just leaving the hospital. About, how old are you? 67 or 8 or something. And I read that story whenever you left the hospital.
And you didn't know you would be sitting here with us.
Isn't that the truth?
68 years later.
Isn't that 68 years?
And you still remember that story. Well,
I went to Kent. I went to church. I know Kent, but you and your brother Kevin, I don't. Your dad comes in. I appreciate meeting you, but I didn't know him.
Well, I appreciate meeting you. You've got some good stories to tell.
I bet.
Yeah, you bet. Have you ever thought about writing a book about the life
I've been asked that several times.
of Roe?
I bet I've been asked that 50 times at least. Why don't you write a book?
Would it be hard to?
I say you don't write them now. You get a little microphone, you talk in it.
Yeah.
Somebody else writes it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that would be better. From you, your voice. I would do that. Let's start tomorrow.
I tell you, since whenever I started getting close to 100 people, the first thing they say to me, how are you today? And I answered that question so many times, I don't answer it anymore.
Yeah. You
I was
figured.
over another home like this 2 years, and been here 2 years, 4 years. Nearly everybody, the first thing they see in the morning or whatever, say, how are you today? So I told my kids when I write my book, I'm going to title it, How Are You Today?
That's a good idea. I like that. Well, would you break it up into, if you had to do it, how would you break it up into sections, like the first 10 years, the 20, the 30s, the 40s? Or first experiences.
I was a country boy. My dad and mother were both farmers. They had their own farm family. Then Dad left the farm and moved into Mount Vernon, Illinois. So I would, about the next 10 or 20 years, would be leaving Mount Vernon and getting settled up here. I was 13 when I come here, and I'm 83 now, so I've lived here 90 years. So that'd be about my second section. The third one would be meeting my wife.
Of course. Where'd you meet?
He had a good-looking wife.
I'm sure he did.
I've got his picture.
Where did you meet the wife?
She had a cousin who lived here, and she lived down 50 miles south of Ramsey, Illinois, out in the country. She's a country. She's up here. She graduated high school, went to a beauty school up here, and became a beauty operator. And while she's up here, her cousin I knew introduced us. And the time that our eyes met, we liked each other.
Wow. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
Wow.
Good-looking girl. She's beautiful.
Beauty. I can see why they...
She was raised in the country, but raised in the church, a little Christian church and all that.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up outside the church. My folks were believers and all. They just didn't go to church. We got up here, my dad got a job working on the street crew for the power company. One morning, he was working around the intersection of Edward and William Street. Car around the corner, come around the corner, he's in the edge of the street around the manhole where he's opening or closing the valve, hit him and killed him. And I was 14, so I kind of grew up running the streets as a kid.
Yeah.
Mom would say, "Ro, don't do that. Ro, stay out till midnight, Ro? I said, yes, Mom, and then I done all that.
Yeah, of
But
course.
I met my wife, and she was just opposite. She grew up in the church. Every Sunday go to church. So that's it. I got a daughter in let's see, 5 months to be 80 years old.
Yeah, my young daughter, 80. Yeah. Where does she live then?
She lives in northern New Jersey outside of New York.
Oh.
Her husband was a traveling salesman for U.S. Steel Company, and the office he worked for, when he was 55, he retired, and they bought a house and they just settled and raised their family there.
Mm-hmm.
Had 2 kids, but their son committed suicide when he was 35.
Oh. He obviously thought that was the only answer.
His daughter was here just a few months ago.
Had a brilliant mind. He was a computer kid. Got a big job with the troubleshooting crew that they sent him all over the country, set up new systems. When the old one broke down, check it out and get it going again.
Right.
And he got in his mind, all he did was travel, he said. My dad traveled, wasn't home, and here I'm doing the same thing. So he went home one weekend and hanged himself.
Oh.
30,
And that was
35 years old.
that was his only solution, huh?
You know, you're exactly right on that. People that commit suicide think there's no other way out. They think only of themselves.
Yeah, it is a very selfish act.
Michael, if he'd stopped it, now, it affected him because it ended his life. But his mom and his dad, grandma and grandpa, his sister, her family, just affects people.
Yeah.
And it creates problems for everyone that's left.
Yeah.
But they think they're the only problem.
And I used to tell my kids,
Selfish.
yeah, I used to tell my kids, it's a long-term solution for a short-term problem.
Yeah.
Because, example, brother Kent, you've met Kent. He's got cancer. And if I did something like that, he would think, how selfish of you, I would trade places.
Well,
I can see why they put the crackers over there by him.
That's right. He likes crackers.
Sharon, my daughter, was going to say, just as bad for them to lose their son as anybody. But
Mm-hmm.
my son, by his first wife, had 3 kids, and the youngest was Ryan, graduated from Southern, come back to care, and he went to Chicago and got him a job. I said, Ryan, this is your home. What do you want to leave here?
Yeah.
Oh, I want to live in a big city a little while, but Grandpa, before I settled down. He played sports. He was a vegetarian. He run 3 or 4 times every week, 2 or 3 miles, getting those relay things they have on there.
5K, 10K.
Anyway, when he was 27 years old, he didn't show up for work one morning, and he went to his apartment and found him laying dead on the floor. Had a heart attack.
See, that's why I don't want to be a vegetarian.
Yeah.
No, one of his sons.
Look, now there's both my grandkids. Don't
Grandkids.
misunderstand. I love one as much as the other. Michael chose to do what he did. Ryan didn't have a chance. He didn't know anything wrong with him.
He said he was a vegetarian and he ran all the time.
Yeah.
But you know, the guy that ran, a long time he wrote a book about running, he died of a heart attack. So it doesn't mean that running is a good thing, it's just, or a bad thing, it's just that it's a predisposition in our heart situation.
Well, this they call aorta aneurysm.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, so that
It's
explains.
a heart attack. Some
But
other conditions too.
Yeah, it's like you said, an aneurysm, so that's something out of your control. I'm still curious, Ro, you talked about if you wrote a book or a movie, and you were talking about the different sections of your life. You stopped at your meeting your wife. What about the next section would you talk about?
Well, she got me, we were married 8 years before she finally got me to come into the church, be a part of the church, be involved just like she always had. And you can believe this or not, I was baptized in February of 1947, and the next 60 years, I missed going to church 5 Sundays in 6 years.